Good. Yep. Good morning. Is everybody awake? You made it, day 2. For those that were out late, there's also coffee and drinks downstairs when you came in. To give feedback on any individual talk, you can click on them on the website, or to give general feedback, you can go to /feedback. We would like to thank the sponsors this morning for allowing us to have this wonderful conference here. First up this morning, we have Ethan Dodge. He's a security engineer with specialization in incident response. He enjoys research projects and is an aspiring malware analyst. Ethan.
Thank you for that introduction. How you guys doing? So how many of you guys were here yesterday? Okay, I thought it would be like a lot less and people just came today for an excuse to get out of work, but seems to not be the case. How many of you guys are going to RSA? I'm not, so I won't raise my hand. I'm actually taking off on vacation for a little bit, so. Quick shout out. So I did not leave this on my personal page right here because I'm totally egotistical, but the yellow and gray really mess with your eyes. So, sorry guys. I don't know. My coworker Will gave a talk with the same color scheme yesterday, and it was fine. So I don't know what's the difference here. Anyway, I'm Ethan. Brian Wareheim was originally supposed to give this talk with me. He's a good friend of mine. A couple things came up, and he wasn't able to make it. Please keep in mind that he participated in all this research with me. Him and I work very closely in several capacities. Yeah, follow him on Twitter. It's I believe it's at Brian_Wareheim. So anyway, I work at a company called Nuna Health. We are a startup here in San Francisco. We're just a few blocks away, actually. And I actually just barely relocated here for this position. Loving San Francisco so far. I've only been here for a month, though. I originally am from Utah, and I'm really excited that I got a couple of fellow Utahns here in the room that came out for RSA. Shout out to Metacortex and Zoltan. Thanks for being here, guys. All right. So, enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about Nuna Health. We work with government and self-insured. I'm going to take this off the stand here. We work with government and self-insured employers to understand and improve how people use healthcare. That's the really vague term of exactly what we do, and it's what PR wants us to say because it's on the website. In short, we do data warehousing and data analytics for healthcare. Pretty much sums it up. Security is the foundation of our culture and our products, and as a result, we like to be very transparent. So if you have any questions at all about Nuna, our security, whatever, I'd be more than happy to ask them. We got a couple other guys here that work here, and they will that work at Nuna, and you could ask them as well. We're also currently accepting resumes. Not necessarily hiring at this moment, but probably will be in a month or two. So I'd be more than happy to take a look at your resume and submit it. If you're interested, come hit me up after. All right, sorry, yellow and gray. Gonna go off that. It's a shame because it really is actually. I think they complement each other very well when it's not freaking out on the screen. All right, how many of you guys are familiar with the term OSINT or OSINT? I personally don't like calling it OSINT, so I'm going to call it OSINT. Okay. All right. Who can tell me what OSINT stands for? Open Source Intelligence. What is Open Source Intelligence without looking at the screen right there? All right. Information available from publicly available sources. Such as social networks, public data records, such as your property records, or your, in a lot of states, your case records, like every time you get pulled over, that is public. And some states have varying information that they share with the public. For instance, I believe it's, I'll get into this a little bit later, but I believe North Dakota, you can actually see the last four of the person's social. So that's fun. If you're from North Dakota, write your congressman and get that fixed, because it's kind of shameful. Anyway, and leaked customer data, there's also there's a ton of other sources. But the most common form of OSINT, I believe we do it on a day-to-day basis, is on Facebook. Who here has leveraged OSINT on Facebook for an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend? Well, you know, maybe you're a little bit like this girl. You know, stalking you on Google Earth. Yeah. How many of you guys have had a significant other like this? All right. You could tell details later. All right. Why OSINT? Okay. Why do we leverage OSINT? A lot of people, when they think of OSINT, they often think of intelligence agencies and companies such as like the NSA, FBI, CIA, or ThreatStream, CrowdStrike, those type of companies. ThreatStream, I believe, is one of our sponsors. Anyway, but private investigators, detectives, lawyers, investigative journalists. Brian Krebs is a really good example of this. He's I'm sure everyone here is familiar with his work. He's an investigative journalist, and he uses a lot of OSINT, criminal activity and law enforcement, and also threat intelligence, right? A lot of people have classified OSINT as stalking. It's not stalking. It's called being an internet detective, guys. Okay, but really it is kind of stalkish. Let's be honest. So, disclaimer. So, I am in no form. There actually is a big difference between gathering open source intelligence and stalking somebody. And I am in no form advocating stalking somebody, because that is illegal. So, if you guys want to get into the differences, we can later. But a general rule of thumb is stalking actually entails physically following the person, not virtually following the person like on Twitter. Otherwise, we would all be screwed. All right. Basic workflow for open source intelligence. This is also good. Excuse me. This is a general workflow for any threat intelligence. Got to identify the source. Identify possible sources of intel. What are some good sources of intel for open source intelligence? Any ideas? LinkedIn. Why do you say LinkedIn? You can find so much stuff on LinkedIn. Are you a penetration tester by chance? Okay, awesome. How many of you guys are penetration testers and have used LinkedIn in a previous engagement? Okay, I thought there'd be a little more, but there were. Let the record show that there were 100 hands that went up. Anyway, Twitter is one of my favorites. Instagram, because of those careless people that. Well, okay, sorry, that was a generalization and very mean. They're not careless. Some people deliberately put the enable geotagging on their posts, and a lot of them have legitimate reasons. I personally don't like doing that because it scares the shit out of me. So, anyway, and then you got to validate. You got to validate make sure that it's not like a fake Twitter profile, or it's not a fake LinkedIn profile, or it's not. Just make sure it's legitimate, right? And then you got to automate it, and we're going to go into a little bit of automation. If you're doing all of this manually, it could get very tiresome. The next step is to analyze. So you could get a wealth of information from LinkedIn and from GitHub and from Twitter and Facebook and property records and tax records aren't public, but anyway, you get a wealth of information. Excuse me, but does it really all apply, right? There's actually, from all the stuff that you can get, a very small percentage of what you're actually going to collect is going to apply to your target. Then determine the probability of it being useful to you. Well, if it applies to the target, is it really going to be useful? Then apply confidence, right? Like, I know for sure this person works at this company, right? Or I'm actually really like only 50% sure. Or I am 100% positive that this is this is one of my coworkers, and they're tweeting sensitive stuff about my proprietary code or our trade secrets or something like that, right? And then from there, you could usually generate new potential sources if they link to something, it usually it's usually a very long process, and you could be as thorough or as not thorough as you want to be. You really could spend weeks just diving into information. Then you enrich. You add context, probability, and confidence level details. And then you develop a narrative. This person was here on this date, and then they went and did this. And based on the geotag from this Instagram photo, they were a part of this crime. Right? That's the typical law enforcement. Or if you're involved in a corporate espionage case, it also might be useful to look at the geotags of people's tweets that might be involved in that. I don't know. The possibilities are endless, right? How many of you guys have ever used Maltego? You can't really see that. Maltego? Any Maltego fans? Nice. Thank you. That's like half the room. I love Maltego. For those of you, okay, how many of you guys have heard of Maltego? Okay. So I'd say just a small percentage of people in this room. But we're going to go over exactly what it is just really quick. So it's a link. It's a visualization tool for open source intelligence. You can take an email or a person's name or a social security number or a Twitter handle or whatever you want, and you could run what are called transforms on them, which are basically just scripts written in any language you want. Excuse me. And then, excuse me, I'm very sorry. Then you will slowly get a web of entities and relationships to your investigation. Some common terms, I've already said: entities, transforms, and machine. So what an entity is these four things, right here, are considered entities in Maltego. You'll see right here, Reddit.com. Then you got their name servers right there. Those four things are considered entities. Then transforms is the thing I like to think of transforms as scripts, and it's the transform that I actually ran to look up Reddit's DNS servers. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then machines are running several transforms together to develop a big web and result. How many of you guys have ever developed your own transforms for Maltego? We got a couple. A few. Okay. It's very, very easy. Pretty much you write the script in Perl, Python, whatever language you want, and then you throw an extra few lines of code in. From Maltego, this is Python, that's my personal favorite. From Maltego transform, import star. They just make a class or a module or whatever you call it. I'm sorry, I'm not a Python guru. I'm probably messing up the terminology like crazy right now. Anyway, and you just import that, and then you have to create a Maltego transform object, and then parse the arguments as system arguments, and away you go. It's as simple as that. And then, then you got to call the object and return the output, so that it actually displays on Maltego. So little shameless plug here. Gavel is a Maltego transform that Brian and myself we developed. Just out of curiosity, and I'm not expecting many hands to go up. How many of you guys have looked at it by chance? Okay, 3, 4. Okay, I expected fewer, so it's good. What it is, it digs up court case records from individual states. That's how I knew information about North Dakota and what is provided in their court case records. Some states are a pain, and they actually organize and file their court case records by county, such as here in California. And so you have to develop a new transform for every single one of those counties. So we're still in the middle of development. We only have Maryland and Delaware and I think maybe another couple states. If you guys are interested in helping us with this initiative and getting all states in pulling their court case records into Maltego, we would love the help. Go ahead and hit us up on Twitter. It's a lot of fun. You can get tons of sensitive information. And there's the link. I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, there's the link. github.com/BrianWareheim/Gavel. I let him take the credit and put it in his repo. Sorry, one second. I'm just going to open my water. Okay. So here's an example. You'll see, again, letting Brian take the credit here. You'll see his name, Brian Wareheim. And we ran this court case, we ran this transform against his name, and we were able to see that he is associated with those addresses and those license plates because he is from Maryland, and Maryland does give you the license plate numbers of the times that you were pulled over and whatnot. This is dummy data, so don't go try and stalk Brian. I tried to convince him to put the real data, but he wouldn't let me. Anyway. Any questions? Don't be afraid to shout out questions in the middle. I really don't care. Okay. I apologize. I'm a little embarrassed. I'm not familiar with... Okay. We have looked at a couple other sources, such as... No, what was the name of the one that we were looking at? It was for private investigators, and it had a name that rhymed. Yes. Yep, LexisNexis. And we looked at a couple other ones. Yes, we do. We, to be honest with you, we kind of put this project on hold just because we had other things come up and we're a little more interested in stuff. But we do plan on developing it further, and we would love suggestions like that. If you'd like to help us, reach out to us on Twitter, and we'd love to. All right. So I got a story for you guys. Not that you can tell, because you can't read that. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to go back to our creative people here. How many of you guys have ever seen this? There's a whole Twitter account. There's several Twitter accounts dedicated to retweeting pictures that people post of their credit cards, and some of them might be fake. A lot of them are real, I do believe. This is scary. How many of you have seen this? I wanted to shout out to Danny Howerton, Metacortex, for this. He's done a lot of research on GitHub. He's actually speaking at BSides Salt Lake City in a couple weeks about his research that he's done on GitHub, and I stole this screenshot from him, so thank you. Anyway, how many of you guys have seen this? Publishing sensitive files such as Etsy Shadow, Etsy Password, or SSH keys to GitHub. Yeah, that'll keep you up at night. Am I right? Man, scary. All right. So here goes my story. So, I was contacted by a university in Utah to speak on OSINT and Maltego. This was for their IT security club. So they were freshmen to senior security enthusiasts studying and researching information security at this university, and they wanted me to do a primer for them. And I thought, how cool would it be to dox somebody and use OSINT to embarrass somebody in that club, right? And reveal all this info. Anyway, so I contacted this girl that I knew that was in the club, and I asked her the following. I doubt you guys can read that because I can barely read it. It's heavily censored. Just so you know, just a warning. I censored a lot of these to protect her. And yeah, I censored them so much that you might not believe, like, I could be making this whole thing up, but I promise this all really happened. Anyway, so another coworker and I have been asked to speak on Maltego, on OSINT and Maltego. We plan on doing a rather extensive demo and wanted to see how much info we could get on someone using sources openly available on the internet. We were wondering if you would be willing to be the victim of the demo. And she said, yeah, that's totally fine. She said, "There's definitely a paste bin out there with an old password hash of mine. I put that in because that ended up being her undoing." So we started with Twitter data because she had something like tens of thousands of tweets, and she tweeted an average of like 20 times a day. That is not an exaggeration. So it was really, really good data, and she did geotag a lot of her tweets. So we needed a way to parse through all that. So we automated all this via Maltego. We identified, validated, and then I'm going to show you all this process here. This is the code to the transform that we used. So this is, how many of you guys have ever messed with Twitter's API? It's fun. I think it's a good API. So this is the function that I wrote. Well, I can't take full credit. If any of you guys are familiar with Justin Seats, he's kind of been a mentor of mine, and I've taken a lot of ideas from him, and some of this code is his. But I have modified a lot of it to my needs. Excuse me. So anyway, so Twitter only lets you grab 200 tweets at a time, right? Per request, I mean. So this is just going through, grabbing 200 tweets, keeping track of the ID of each tweet so that you could go back. And then when you go to this function, which calls the previous function that I just showed you, if we keep track of the ID, then we make sure we're not pulling duplicate tweets, right? And then it puts it all into a list for us, which is nice. So we downloaded all of our tweets, so they'll let you grab 200 tweets per API call, but they'll only let you pull the most recent 3,200 tweets of a user. So we were able to pull 3,200 tweets. So if anybody, that's just an interesting note. So if any of your applications have tweets of over 3,200 tweets for a person, it's because they've been pulling them for a long time and saving them on their own infrastructure and whatnot. Anyway, so we looked at the geotag information. We plotted it on a map. Where do you guys think this is? This was home. This was home. Excuse me. Yeah, that was pretty easy to tell, right? There's like thousands of tweets just right there. Then we wrote this another part of this transform, and this interacts with the Google Maps API. How many of you guys have messed with Google Maps API? So I cannot take credit for this part of the code at all. Brian totally wrote this himself. And it's a shame because it is definitely the coolest part of the transform. What it does is it takes all the longitude and latitude coordinates that we grab from the tweets, and it submits them to Google Maps. Then Google Maps pops out a street address. And what it does is it returns the top 5 street addresses that the person was tweeting from. We also made, so in Maltego, you can apply confidence levels depending on how thick the line is. If the line connecting the two entities is thicker, that implies that it's higher confidence, and so that's just what we're doing right here. And again, this is heavily censored, so you might not believe me, but I promise you this is her Twitter handle, and those are the top 5 addresses that she was tweeting from. I promise you. Or I could just be trying to look like a badass, but anyway. Then we found this. That was, anyway, we had a blast going through all her Twitter data, and we were able to, just a real quick side note going back, I will tell you guys that one of these addresses was her home. Another one was where she spent the most time on campus of her particular school. And that's really scary in that we could, and we did, map out the fastest route and all the possible routes that Google Maps tells you how to get to those places, and literally try and stalk her, right? But that is crossing a line. Do not cross that line, okay? And we did not do that. And again, we had documented approval from her throughout this whole process. Then we found this. I don't know if you guys can see this. And can you guys see that and tell me what it is? It's a hash. is an unsalted hash. And this is what it comes out to be. We found a rainbow table online, and we were able to crack it. Well, the rainbow table was able to crack it. That was just a SHA-1 unsalted hash. And then we were like, okay, the scope of this, we could get in big trouble if we go any further with this. So I sent her another email, and I said, sorry to keep bothering you. We just wanted to verify the scope of this engagement. How far are we allowed to go? We just made a significant advancement and are entering a bit of a gray area. Do you have any issue with us attempting login to any of your online accounts? Then I further said that we aren't going to do anything malicious. We're just going to get in, take a screenshot, prove that we were there, and then get out. And she said, go ahead with the logins. I have nothing embarrassing as far as I know. Hey, exactly. Challenge accepted. I like it. Anyway, so have you guys ever heard of Noam.com? Nope. Or there's another site that does a similar thing. I can't remember the name. Anyway, you pop in a username right here into the search, and then it tells you all the sites that username is taken. And she had a very unique username, and it was awesome. So we went through that entire list. It was much more than is shown on here. We attempted login on probably about half of them because we ran out of time. We got access to some stuff. It was expired, but still very sensitive, right? Got into her Reddit account, or I'm just logged into my Reddit account and blacked out the username. You guys will never know. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, this is so. A lot of you guys are probably thinking, okay, so this is cool. He went and doxed this girl, but how does this apply to my job at this time, right? I'm gonna get to that because I really like I really like finding applications to things, and I'm going to go over that. But first, I'm going to go over exactly everything that we were able to find. We were able to get her home address. We suspected that it was we suspected what it was via Twitter, but then we were able to apply a 100% confidence level because we found it in Etsy, and her shipping address. We were able to find approximate class locations based on where she was tweeting. And what we really wanted to do, but we never got around to, was see if we could actually determine her school schedule based on what time she tweeted from which location. We found her password. That was that transform that I showed earlier, where we found the salt, was a transform written by haveibeenpwned.com. They have one that integrates with Maltego. We were able to find her close friends, who she talks with the most on Twitter and Instagram, Java history, LinkedIn, Facebook. That's not really a huge deal. I was able to find several IP addresses that she uses regularly based on her Reddit login history. That's a big deal, right? Especially I mean, that's a little bit of an application, right? If someone can get into the Reddit account of an employee and see the office IP and start attacking that. I mean, there's other ways to get the IP, obviously. There's no problem. Yes?
How did she manage to post the unsalted password hash in the first place?
So I'm going to be as vague as possible to protect her, but she was involved in a breach of a company that did not salt their passwords. I'm sorry, what was that? Yeah, I don't know, right? So to her credit, all of these accounts, she says she no longer uses. But yeah, no, it's definitely best practice to change that password and not use the same password across, which she does not do anymore. No, she had changed her ways before all of this anyway. Good questions. Any other questions? No? And then we were able to find her birth date and where she got her hair did. We were also able to find some stuff out on her family. We got their addresses and their property records. We were able to find out how many members, brothers and sisters, her age, all of her brothers and sisters' ages, and all their names. And we could have gone a lot further and done all of this on each of them individually and had a lot of data, right? So anyway, so let's get into a few use cases for the red team. All right, you penetration testers out there, what would you use this information for? Social engineering. Fish all the things. So this is, we did try to fish her. This is the sad part of the story. She didn't click the link. She didn't fall for it. So it's sad for me because I really wanted her to click on it, right? But it was hats off to her. And what we did, we took information that we had learned about her based on her profiles and stuff, and threw all that into an email and tried to get her to click on the link. Someone also threw out social engineering, right? Only you can prevent social engineering, and she did prevent it, so that's good. So the red team cases are use cases are pretty obvious here, right? Yeah, you had mentioned earlier that you use LinkedIn data for investigations. Definitely also a good source, right? So let's talk about the use cases for blue team, okay? And before I go any further, I wanna talk about any Johnny Cash fans here. I'm not a Johnny Cash fan. I just used the line. Anyway, so this is a very thin line. And before you go implementing anything like this, you definitely need to consult, if you have a chief privacy officer, a CSO, CTO, you need to consult other people. You just can't start going and doing this on all your employees because there will be a lot of pushback. And this is walking a very fine line of privacy, okay? So I'm not advocating that you guys violate anybody's privacy. But however, I do believe that conducting OSINT on some of your employees will definitely help prevent attacks, especially social engineering attacks. Okay? Okay, so we could use Twitter to see if there's if anything that they're tweeting about is potentially malicious. If they're following competitors, that's not really a huge deal, right? But are they talking with competitors on Twitter? You know, that might be a little shady. Are they talking about your brand, right? Or Instagram. Are they posting pictures about with their work badges on it? That would probably be accidental, right? I don't think anyone would deliberately. Well, I don't know, maybe, but I wouldn't deliberately post a picture of my work badge, right? But I could see myself doing it accidentally, right? Passwords. I talk about this in that. Is there a password or other sensitive information, such as a network diagram drawn on the whiteboard behind them in the picture that they're not aware of? So there should. What was the case? Was it the Trayvon Martin case that that the attorney took his daughter took a picture on their lunch break and it ended up incriminating him in some way, and posted it on Instagram? I'm sorry, that was very vague details, but that's all I know. But something like that, right? It could get you in a lot of trouble. GitHub, again. Danny Howerton has done a lot of research on this. Committed sensitive file, committed proprietary code. How many of you guys have seen this? Oops, I just committed our entire code base to GitHub. That's scary. That's scary. Unless you're an open source company, then you do it every day. But, or you committed company info, like the directory. I've seen that before. One time I was participating in a red team, blue team, CTF. I was on the red team, and we found one of the blue team's GitHub repos, and it had all of their phone numbers right there listed in the repo, right? So there's some really sensitive information, and like I said, if you want to find out more on how you could harvest GitHub, check out Metacortex's talk in a couple weeks at BSides Salt Lake City. I think you've given the same talk at BSides Boise as well, right? Yeah. And TorCon, right? So I'm sure you guys can find it. Facebook. Is any of the public activity malicious? Friends with competitors, talking about your brand, stuff like that. Same thing as Twitter, right? Brand monitoring. This is where I think it could be extremely valuable, doing OSINT monitoring. And this isn't necessarily targeting your employees, this is more. How many of you guys have heard of the term, the tool Scumbler? How many of you guys have deployed and used Scumbler? You? I might be wanting to talk to you a little bit after this meeting. Scumbler, for those of you who don't know, is a tool developed by Netflix. And basically, you tell it to go search for stuff online, and it will come back and tell you if it got any hits, right? And it's specifically meant to find potentially malicious chatter or leaked data, whatever you want it to find. It'll try and go out to find it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's essentially the idea, right? Yeah. You can monitor your name, your brand. I think of us, Nuna Health. This is going to be extremely helpful for us, where we are a healthcare company. We have buttloads of data, very, very sensitive data, that I would want to know if someone is talking on the dark web about it, right? About Nuna, right? I'd want to know right away. So you could rate your employees. I would imagine that most of this stuff, most of the sensitive stuff that they're going to post would be accidental, unless you have a disgruntled employee or something, right? And I'm not saying that we should tell our employees, no, you can't have a life on social media, right? That's not what I'm implying at all. I think we should rate them, and those that are a little more talkative online, and they may have a little more potential to leak sensitive data. We should monitor them a little bit closer, right? That's essentially what I'm suggesting. Who's your most active employee? Monitor them a little closer, right? And then push it to your SIM. Alert and correlate. If you could get intelligence that there's an attack coming on your network, or you're being targeted, or an employee is being targeted potentially, you could prevent a lot of stuff. You could prevent a social engineering attack. You could, if you have reason to suspect that an employee is going to be targeted for phishing, you could pull them aside, tell them to be extra careful, with their permission, maybe even monitor all their incoming emails, stuff like that, right? So another shameless plug, Interrogator. We, Brian and myself, and anyone else that wants to help us, we're going to be developing a web application that will automate all of this. It will be continuous OSINT monitoring of your workforce, or if you're a private eye, you could do OSINT monitoring of anyone else, right? You'll be able to visualize the relationships with a graph database, much like Maltego, except in web form, so that you could use it across platform. And we're hoping to get an initial version out sometime mid-2016. We were hoping to get the beta version released before BSides, but unfortunately some other things came up and we were not able to. Real quick, touching on what I was saying about Instagram, looking for objects and photos. Justin Seats, who I had mentioned previously, or Sites, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name. He has a very active blog at automatingosint.com, and he actually talks about finding. He researches more the geopolitical type stuff about automatically finding weapons. But you could also take this article and the practices that he applies here and find other things. This is a great article. I would highly recommend it. It says part 1, and it was released in January. Part 2 is yet to come out, so I'm really looking forward to it. I'll tweet it out once it does come out. So, yeah. And then just a few recommendations. I'm sorry? Is there a question? Just a few recommendations. I highly suggest following Justin Seats, JMS_dot_pi on Twitter. Also the Grug. You guys familiar with the Grug? He does a lot of OSINT stuff. He's very brilliant. AutomatingOSINT.com. That's Justin's blog. Bellingcat.com. Quick disclaimer about Bellingcat.com. They're not security professionals. They are private investigators, and they more focus on like geopolitical issues and using satellites to detect if armies are moving, stuff like that, right? Stuff that you see in the movies. But it does give you a very, very good idea of what you are able to accomplish, and probably give you some ideas on how you could apply it to your job and save your company's butt before anything happens, right? Any questions? Yes.
I'm pretty sure that the nation states they already have some tools like that. We never hear of that. And it seems that the kind of sort of really interactive tool, because this still seems like really basic stuff.
Yes, it is very basic stuff. And I'm sure, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, there's no formally released tool unless you want to pay big bucks to automate all this, right? The purpose that we're behind our interrogator application that we plan on developing is to make it more easily accessible to everyone. We're going to completely open source the whole thing, right? Going to accept pull requests. Anyone can edit the code, and open to lots of ideas. We're huge advocates of open source software. So the idea behind Interrogator is to make it more readily available to everyone. But you're absolutely right. It is fairly trivial and simple things that we're going to be doing. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, guys. Give me a follow on Twitter. Hit me up on my blog or ethan@noonan.com. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ethan. They wanted me